Welcome to Star Talk, everyone. And we are with Thomas Cox. And what I'm really loving about this conversation is he is a financial architecture. And I say architecture, but it's actually an architect. And he does infinite banking strategy. I would love for you to tell everybody, what is financial architecture?
So, probably the best thing the way I can describe that is we construct people's finances in a non-traditional way. A lot of times people are taught, hey, take your money, load it in the stock market, and kind of let it roll from there. But we have a lot of different alternatives to the way we do invest money, what we do tell people to allocate money. And it's just not your traditional way. It works for us, works for me, works for my team, works for the people that we go with. It's not for everybody, that's for darn sure. But we specialize in working with investors, business owners, and really high W-2 people like doctors, lawyers, vets, dentists, people like that. So that's more of I could go into the details, but I'm sure we'll get into that later on.
Absolutely. First of all, I'd love for you also to share is how did you actually get into financial architecture? Like what made you actually create that name? Where did it come from?
Sure.
Where did you start?
That's a great question. So I coached college football for about 10 years and got out of that. And then when I got out of coaching college football, I started my own business. And the business owner journey, Carly, really helped me understand the money and how money flows and things like that. Because honestly, if you're going to learn about money and how the money flows, you're going to have to figure out what that looks like for you as a business owner. And you're going to have to do it trial by fire. It's really, really difficult when you're what we call a salary person, meaning you get a monthly salary and you're just going about your business. But when your income goes really, really high to really, really low and somewhere in between, you have to figure out how to make that thing work. And when you can figure out how to make that thing work, then at that point, what happens is you have to be more aware. And when you have to be more aware, you are a lot more cognizant of where the money comes from and where the money's going.
I think that's really important because a lot of people are not aware of their finances. I know people that still don't balance their checkbook or look at their bank on a regular basis, right? So it's so important. I'd like for you to dive into some strategies for people. What would you say are 3 really good strategies that people could focus on?
Well, to be totally honest with you, it depends on who they are. Are they high income, meaning like they're W-2, meaning like a doctor, lawyer, dentist, or are they a business owner? Because there's so many different people out there that we could dive into. I do believe in like 4 core principles. I do believe that business ownership is one of the best ways to go as far as building wealth. That's the first thing. The second way is I do believe in the market. I do believe in the dollar cost averaging on a monthly basis. I think it's a great way to just shut your eyes and let the market do what it's going to do. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. I believe in that because I practice it myself. One of the biggest things that we do with it's a little bit outside the box per se is we practice a concept called infinite banking, which is putting our savings dollars into a cash value life insurance policy that continues to grow. And then when we do that, we then borrow and use that money, honestly, Carly, like our own bank. So this is a banking function that we take back control over our lives and do this with all of our clients that come to work with us. So that's just 3 little pockets of what we do and the strategies that we use.
Can you go a little bit more into what is infinite banking? I mean, I know you touched on it briefly, but
Sure.
Just for the people that don't know the language, there's just so many people that are not financially, linguistically correct.
Right. Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
So infinite banking is a concept of using an insurance policy to store cash so that we can use that insurance policy in the back office of the insurance company, in essence, as our own bank. So what happens is we buy a small amount of death benefit. And when we buy a small amount of death benefit, we put a lot more cash into that policy. When we give that money to the insurance company through a whole properly structured whole life policy, not an IUL, make that clear, this is not an IUL, it's a properly structured whole life policy. When we put that money in and they give that money to the insurance company, and that money grows at a guaranteed rate. When that money grows at a guaranteed rate, it grows tax-free, it grows creditor protected. So if we get sued, nothing can happen to it. And it never has any uninterrupted compounding. So as that money goes into this policy, it's on a trajectory of growth that will never stop. When I want to use that money, I then borrow from that set amount. So let's just use, for example, say there's $100,000 in my infinite banking account, my insurance policy, and I want to borrow 50. the $100,000 is still going to grow at the 100,000 mark, even though I've borrowed $50,000. I can take that $50,000 and then I can then invest that into whatever mechanism I want to invest that in. I continue that process and I move money in, I move money out, and I pay that loan back. I use it. I continue to cycle money through that policy. And what that does is that allows me to capture that interest that I would be paying for someone else. Because here's the thing, Carly, no matter what you do, whether you finance and borrow money or you use cash, you finance everything you do. You're either paying someone to use their money or you're losing out on lost opportunity costs when you use cash. So we take back that banking function in our life so we can give our dollars more than one job.
So what we're talking about is what a lot of people say in the business world now is basically use other people's money, right? So how does that play into it, or it doesn't play into it at all?
I would say this is it's somewhat the opposite of use other OPM, other people's money. Okay. This is where I'm building my bank account. I'm building my insurance policy. I'm building my infinite banking policy through months, years of contributing to this policy. I'm going to put that money in there. And here's the great unlock, Carly, is that money never stops growing. Okay. Even if I borrow and use that money for something else, the money's never going to stop growing, because when I put that money to use, I'm borrowing from the amount. And so let's just give, for example, a HELOC. So say my house is worth $500,000 and I own it free and clear. I own it, it doesn't have a mortgage. The bank will let me borrow, let's just say 70% of the value. The bank will let me borrow $350,000 based off the collateral of that home. I can take the $350,000 and I can go invest in real estate. I can go buy a business. I can do anything I want to with that money. The value of my house doesn't go down because I borrowed off of my HELOC. Mm-hmm. So the value of my house will continue to rise. It's the same thing with this. I put money into an infinite banking account and I borrow from it. The balance is never going to go down in value. It's still going to continue to rise because it's got a guaranteed 4% rate that's growing and a dividend. We can get into that later. But if I borrow and use that money and give some of that money in there another job, my money's working over here and then my money's working also in the policy. It gives my dollar more than one job. And we can capture that banking function in our lives, especially as a business owner and investor. It's an absolute wonderful unlock for anyone that's in that business.
So I understand what you're saying, Thomas. You can borrow and the actual equity or value is still creating money off of that value, even though you took money out to go create something else, right?
Yep.
So go deeper into, like, I know, like, when I read your bio, you also do with real estate companies and whatnot.
Yeah. What
is your favorite niche of people to work with?
Business owners, hands down. I love a business owner. We've got a business owner that we work with that he owns an HVAC business, brings in $800,000 or $900,000 a year, pays himself $60,000, got 3 kids, and he's got a policy on himself that he uses his policy. The business funds his insurance policy, and he uses it to buy trucks and to buy equipment and things like that for his HVAC business. But he also, this is where I'm really, really passionate about, he also has a policy on his kids. And what this does, Carly, it does a handful of things. So whole life, cash value whole life insurance policies on our kids are a wonderful unlock, especially for business owners. Here's why. I can deduct the what I'm paying them. I can put them on payroll. I can deduct that from my expenses. That money then goes into an insurance policy and it grows tax-free the rest of their life. So in my opinion, the days of a 529 for people in my circles are over. People are not going to do that when they understand what this concept is and how it can benefit your kids, because that money's going to grow tax-free. So, like, for example, I've got a 17, a 14, and a 10-year-old. All three of them have infinite banking policies. They're going to grow tax-free for the rest of their life. I started contributing to them about 2 or 3 years ago, and that thing's going to continue to grow. And I'm going to use it for cars. I'm going to use it for college. I'm going to use it to start businesses. I'm going to use it to buy their first house. So we're going to use this in so many different ways. And that's what a lot of business owners do. They obviously use it for their business, but then when they start paying their kids and taking the deduction and using that as an unlock to build wealth for the next generation, it's something that, in my opinion, is very freeing, but it also helps that second generation of kids and people that are coming up behind us to give them so much more freedom in what they're doing.
So how would you go about suggesting, like, for parents, for example, how would they get started to do that?
That's a great idea. First thing I would do is I don't want to say, because it's a life insurance product. The one thing mistake that people make is I want to, how much would $1 million policy cost me? That's the last question you ask. When we're talking about cash value life insurance and building for a bank, because what I'm doing is I'm taking, like I've said before, I'm taking the banking function back in our lives. When I'm doing that, the question I have to ask myself is how much do I want to allocate to this bank every month or every year? So I'll give you a great example. So we do policies as small as $12,000 a year. My 10-year-old, I do $12,000 a year for her policy. I've got a client that we work with that does a policy for $246,000 a year. So she puts $246,000 a year into this policy because she's using it as the banking function of her life. We've got a client that puts over $1 million a year into one of these policies. So how much do you want to allocate for your future generation? How much do you want to allocate for a kid? How much do you want to allocate for yourself to use that banking function in your life? And so it's a loaded question because I don't know your situation. So I got off the phone with a guy that earlier today wants to do a policy for like $9,000 a year. Small policy, but would it build over time? Yes. Then I'm having a conversation with a guy that's want to do $450,000 in a policy. So to answer your question is how much do I want to save each year into this policy? Because it's a yearly commitment. And then from there, I can extrapolate out and say, okay, this is how we're going to get there.
And how would they find someone like you? Like, in other words, not everyone has infinite banking and the different strategies,
Sure.
for example, that you have. So how well, that's actually just a great question anyways. Where can people find you and where can people get tips and tricks and tools on anything to do with infinite banking and architecture, that everything that you do? Where do they go?
Sure. The first place to go is my website's really easy. It's thomascox.co, thomascox.co. You can go there and I've got all kinds of resources and things like that. All of the social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, we're on all that kind of stuff. LinkedIn, we're on every platform. So you can find us there and everything is thomascox.co. That's the best place to find us. My email address is thomas@thomascox.co. But here's the key is there are a handful of people out there that can structure these things like we do and understand it like we do. But you'll hear me say this 100 times, properly structured. These policies have to be properly structured because if you go to what they call a captive insurance company and they'll say, yeah, we can do that. They don't have the product and they don't understand how this whole process works. And so if they don't understand, you're going to get locked into a product that's not safe and it's going to put you behind the 8 ball as far as from an insurance perspective. I can sell you life insurance. With infinite banking, we are setting you up on a banking function. Yes, is there a death benefit? There is. But what our primary goal is to set you up with the banking function in your life so that your family can function with the banking system in their ecosphere so that they can use that product.
So basically you're creating almost like a legacy for the families. That's
exactly right. The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all the uber wealthy over the years have been doing this for over 100 years. It's starting to come back to mainstream. There's a handful of guys out there that are doing a really good job at explaining what this is. My mentor, Justin Kraft, is probably one of the best in the world at talking about this and explaining it. A guy named Garrett Gunderson does a really good job at explaining it. He's wonderful at talking about generational wealth and what they call the Rockefeller method of setting up a family trust, but then having the life insurance, the properly structured life insurance policy, be a critical component in the flywheel of the trust and how it can create what they call a dynasty trust down the road that will make sure that the subsequent generations don't spend all the money that the parents spent a lot of time and years building.
Absolutely. So tell me, besides doing banking, what are some things that you love to do for yourself?
The honest answer, Carly, is I like to work. I like to spend time with my family and I like to exercise. I don't have hobbies. I don't play golf. I hunt with my son. I fish with my son and I spend time with him. That is the God's honest truth. Kids are 7 at the time.
Going to the gym is a hobby.
Yeah, but I do that before everybody gets up. So I'm back at house before everybody gets up. So it is a hobby. There's no question. But like I'm done with that before everybody gets up because our time is extremely valuable. My time is extremely valuable. And if I want to I don't want to go play golf with the boys. Like it's a 4-hour process. If I'm going to go hunt, I'm going to go hunt with my son. If I'm going to play volleyball, I'm going to play volleyball with my kids. Like my kids are 17, 14, and 10. I don't have much time with them. I'm going to spend as much time with them as I possibly can because I want to have the most influence on their lives as I possibly can.
Speaking of that, what influence are you putting on them financially? Like how are you teaching them about the funds that you're creating? Like, are you teaching them about collecting money or saving money or, spending money? What are you doing to teach them?
Yeah, that's great. So we have what we call structured family meetings about twice a year, where we'll come in and we'll sit down and we'll talk about the trust. We'll talk about the will. We'll talk about how much money we have. We'll talk about how much dad makes. We'll talk about all those different things. But then also, Carly, the biggest unlock is what I call windshield time. Me taking my son to practice and him asking questions and us talking about the finances, or us sitting at dinner and John, my 17-year-old, asking questions about whatever financial situations or questions we have. We would take 7 minutes here and there, and she'll just walk in after school one day and say, "Tell me about IBC and how this works." And I'll just take 7 minutes and 5 minutes and explain it. I got a whiteboard in my office and I just get up there and I'll start, mapping things out for her. But it's not these big esoteric weekly 1-hour meetings, Carly. It is the drips, raindrops make oceans. And I just want to make sure that I'm not even daily, but it's weekly, it's monthly. It's just these small conversations all the time about what we believe financially, how we want to steward our money, and what that looks like from a wise perspective.
And that's great because you're going to teach them how to build a legacy, which is so important.
Oh my gosh. It's such a forethought and such a concept and a talking point in our lives all the time.
And it's wonderful. Your kids are very lucky to have a father like you. A lot of fathers do not do that.
Right.
Yeah. So what I'd love to end with is where I'm trying to understand, not for me, but for the public. I really want to get down to where, like, if they wanted to find someone like you, how would they go about that? Because I really don't think, infinite banking isn't a generalized term that is just out there for everyone, or is financial architecture, right? It's just not a word that most people use. So just to get down to the nitty gritty, if someone wanted to find someone like you, and obviously they can find you, and you can work with anyone from anywhere, right? You can do everything virtually, correct?
Yeah. I have clients all over the country. I've just today, I've been on a call with a guy from Texas, Virginia, Michigan, and Nebraska today. So like, I work with people, and look, I'd love to recommend a bunch of different people. I'm not real sure how to get in touch with all the other infinite banking specialists. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's not a ton of us out there. There's a handful. We've got about 6 or 7 guys in my office that are just absolute studs with it, and they could help. But and people are not always going to resonate with me. I'm very forward and straight shooting. So I can direct anyone to anyone. We got a young lady in our office that's an absolute stud when it comes to understanding infinite banking. So we've got females out there that want to work with a female. We've got a person for you. But again, I would say the best thing to do is go to my website, go to any of our social media links, and just find me and look, hey, can you send me to someone in Michigan? If you want to sit with somebody, work face to face, I can find somebody in your hometown. The thing I will caution you with is make sure you're not going to a captive insurance agent that can only write with one company. You got to be sure that it is properly structured. And look, if you've got one of these things and you want me to look at it, I will take a free look and give you advice and not try to sell you anything and say, hey, this is great, or hey, this is terrible. You need to do something else. But I'll give you that honest opinion.
Perfect. And I always end with this question. What are 3 ahas that you want people to leave with?
3 ahas? Did you say aha?
Yeah, aha moments.
That you can, number 1, you can take back the banking function in your life. Number 2 is wealth is a long-term game. There are no quick fixes. Number 3 is you have to consistently, diligently speak to your kids and your family about what your vision is of how wealth should be created. And if you're not confident in that, find someone that can help you understand their North Star when it comes to the financial world, because there's so many people out there that they just don't get it, and they just pass down bad information. If you're not super confident in what you know and understand financially, find someone that can help you and just brainstorm with them and say, and the most important thing for me when I'm doing that is just ask questions. I can ask people questions. I've been asking questions for years, and I ask questions every day anyway.
And it's important to ask questions, because it's not about us, it's about them, and we can't serve them unless we know about them. So it's a two-way conversation. That's very important to have. So
that's right.
Anyways, is there anything else that you would love to share?
If you have questions, reach out to me. Like, I got me, and I've got a couple people that work with me on my team. If you want to talk to me, talk to me. If you want to talk to a lady, I've got a young lady named McKinley that works with us. She's absolutely awesome. She's incredibly knowledgeable. If you want, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to book a call. Don't be afraid to sit down and ask 30 minutes of questions. Listen, I will tell you if I can help you. I will tell you if I can't help you. I had a call earlier today. I can't help you because of a financial situation that he is in. I didn't have the tools to help him. I'll tell you that. That is the most important thing, is you getting honest, good advice.
Yeah, I think as we all know, we like to do work with people that we love and trust, that we
That's
know
right.
and trust, right? So that is so
Yes, ma'am.
important. It's been an absolute delight having you. And
Yes, ma'am.
I wish you much success, Mr. Thomas Cox. And
Thank you.
I look forward to having this come out and get people knowledge on infinite banking, because I think it's a real thing out there. Actually, I do have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
In your opinion, now with AI, is AI going to affect like infinite banking or the way things are done, you think? Or do you think AI just could be another tool to help? It's one of those dicey things right now. AI helps with some things, and for some things, not necessarily.
Here's what I'm running into with AI. When we sit down and have a meeting with people, first thing they do when they get off a meeting is they take anything that we've given them, they put it in AI. There is a place for that for sure. I think what AI is going to do for all of us is going to make us more knowledgeable. But knowledge doesn't mean anything unless we apply it. If we can apply the knowledge that we get from AI, it could be great. It really, really could be. But if we put in a financial plan into AI, but yet we don't practice it, it doesn't really make it. Hasn't helped us.
Exactly.
Those things are great. I love them. I was on it earlier today, and I'm going to get on it when I get off the call with you. There's so many good things about what it can do, but what we have to do is take the knowledge, filter through it, and then apply it. We got to apply what we're learning, Carly. It doesn't make a difference if I read a book and understand it all, but I don't apply what I've learned. It doesn't make a hill of beans difference.
Absolutely. That was one of the things I caught myself today in the interview, saying the word "but," and that's a big one for me. I always use the word "and" instead, because I don't want to cancel out everything before.
I just said, that's right. That's very good.
Absolutely. So anyways, you have a wonderful day. I appreciate you being with me, and I look forward to talking to you another time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next week. Okay, and we're